Minister, my question relates to whether you have or will consider the idea of a consultative forum of the Pyrite Remediation Board, the housing agencies and the deputies in the constituencies affected by pyrite to review the legislation. As you well know, there are problems in how the board and the agency are interpreting the legislation. They seem to be refusing any intervention from your department or legal advice that you have got, and it's making life incredibly difficult for citizens affected by pyrite.
Glad you managed to get everybody's question in, because I think it's an important discussion to have. I think, in fairness, there's no plans to set up a forum that you're calling for, but that doesn't mean we're not open to sitting down to discuss any of the issues that are there. In fairness, we had a very useful meeting, sometime I think it was in the back end of last year, where all the relevant deputies came together with the agency, with ourselves, and we teased through some of the issues there. And yes, progress on change was a little bit slow after that, but I think we made some progress in the last couple of weeks as well. So I'll be very happy to have that ongoing engagement. In fairness, I think we've attempted a few occasions to try and have that, but because there are still some certain sectors that maybe need changes as well, so we're willing to look at that as well. But we have made progress recently on foot of the last kind of meeting we had, so I will arrange that again, but I'm not going to make a kind of a formal consultative board. It's not required, I don't think. If we can sit down ourselves as deputies concerned and try to work through some changes here. If that doesn't work out, then we can look at it again, but it doesn't need a formal board in my view. Plus there is the process there that you can engage with the Pyrite Resolution Board as well directly, but I'd be happy to arrange a further discussion and see where we go from that.
Not bothered whether there's a forum or not, but what I did want is the opportunity to raise this issue on the floor of the House, because I know that you know there are cases that are being interpreted by the board completely incorrectly. The legislation as it stands now says that people who bought their houses after the enactment of the legislation were generally not covered by the scheme unless they could demonstrate that they didn't know of the presence of pyrite, nor could they have known. Now, you got legal advice on that, and you said that there was no impediment to them including cases under this remit. I had a meeting with them in relation to a constituent of mine where we demonstrated in black and white that not only could the man not have known, because nobody knew, nowhere in Swords or in that estate anywhere was pyrite present when he bought that property. Subsequently, a small number emerged. And that board listened to the case. They couldn't give me a reason for why they wouldn't deal with it. This is now about 6 months ago, a year after you and me met them on this issue, and they still refuse to include that case. Now, that is absolute madness. There is no impediment, and if they don't listen to you as the Minister, what hope do I have as a Deputy? So we need some forum for calling them to account.
Again, Deputy, maybe I wasn't clear enough in the first answer. I think we have made progress on that particular area and the legal advice that we brought to the department, because I don't expect any board particularly listen to me as individual minister. So we backed that up with legal advice and an opinion which we gave. I understand the board then got their own legal advice, and we've now, I think, finally made progress on that situation, which affects a certain number of people as well. So I do believe, as of the meeting they would have had last week, that there's been progress made. So I think you might be a little bit happier on that situation. I'm still aware there's other scenarios we want to tease through as well, but we have made some progress because we didn't give up in the last 6 months. We kept pursuing it and pursuing it, but we used proper legal advice and legal interpretation, not just my opinion or somebody else's opinion as well. But that was as a result of us all coming together to tease through some of the problems. So I'm happy that we'll do that again to facilitate it, and that's the way to do it. But again, to be clear, over 2,000 people have made applications. At this stage, over 1,800 and something are in the system, and over 1,400 have had their houses resolved and to a satisfactory condition, and another up about 500 people will have their houses remediated issue as well. So we've made good progress here. I think you acknowledge that too. And there are other scenarios we'll deal with, and I'm happy to have that consultation with you to do that.
I think that there is really a secret plot between the government and the legal profession, because, I mean, well, it's even not that secret, because you as the Minister, in fairness to you, got legal advice and fair play to you, which said there was no impediment to the board. The board then go and presumably again use public money to get their own legal advice to stop the implementation of something that you were trying to facilitate. Now, how in God's name is that a productive use of their time? And here we are, and I hear what you're saying. You're saying a year and a half down the road, you think you've got them back on board or back online. That's really not good enough from a public body, particularly when I have at least one householder whose house is crumbling down, who can't be included in the scheme, when we've demonstrated clearly that he he could not have known that pyrite existed because nobody in Swords did at the time. And I think it's really shameful. And I'm not blaming you, because I know you've tried to push them and all of that. But isn't it shocking that you at the Minister had to go to these lengths, and we're on our third round of legal advice now to get these fellas to act? It would have cost them probably cheaper if they just went and fixed your man's house to begin with.
Thank you, Deputy. No, Minister.